let's go ahead and look at wireframing. Think of wireframing as a sort of fancy thumbnail sketch for whenever you're building your websites. And this is a really important step for any process with designing something for the screen. It's going to allow you to figure out what is the most important info, and it's also going to help you plan your layout to see how you want your user to process the information. So think of this as the user experience portion of that. What is the most important? This is our hierarchy. So from the most important to the least important, how do you get your information out to the viewer? So think of it as like a blueprint, and you need to see it in black and white before you actually understand how it's built. So if this was a house, you look at the blueprint, and then you could actually understand how the house is built. So this is going to be similar to this. So you can't start by, just building the pixel layers in Photoshop or just chugging through the code without knowing where this information is going. So again, the hierarchy. The header, body, footer, these are our main containers that everything's housed in. What is the most important to the least important, and what is what's in between? That's what we need to figure out. All right, so this is also really important because it helps us figure out how does the user interact with that interface. So if you're wireframing, you're not getting too invested into the process. You can figure it out from more of the black and white mode without too much time invested to see how things, navigate or click through, or where do they go from here, how many scrolls, etc. So there are various states of buttons or menu behaviors within this, and it helps us figure out where is the user going from point A to point B. All right, so it's allowing us to plan that layout. It's also helping us figure out the interaction of their interface without being distracted by the colors, the type, or even the copy. And those are what I lovingly refer to as the bells and whistles. And that's the fun part. I'll say, let's put fun in quotes. That's the fun part of design. What is the color? If I'm doing a web design for Target, you have your Target red. What colors go with red? What typefaces do they use, etc. So that comes later. So it's like putting the cart before the horse. We need to actually figure everything out before we get to those bells and whistles. All right, for inspiration, and I will be posting this link on our learning module site also so that you'll have it. There's a site called I Heart Wireframes, and this one's really useful for seeing different inspirations. All right, so your modes of working. Now this is similar to, sort of similar, I'll say, to how we were talking about with our idea generation lecture. So we have different modes that we need to figure out the systems that work best for us. So, you can see here, it's starting sometimes with a sketch, then we go into our wireframe, then we work with our visuals, and then we actually go into code. This is the pretty standard route. This is the one that if you're like, I'm not quite sure how to go about doing this process. First one's, pretty standard. Then we have sketch to wireframe, and then we have high def wireframe, visuals, and code. So we have lo-fi and hi-fi, or in this case, high def, low def, same concept. Think of it like a record. You have your lo-fi and you have your hi-fi. One has a little bit less info, one goes into it a little bit more. So the high def, you might be starting to deal with some of the colors and typographic decisions, but not fully. Some go from wireframe to the high def to the visual to the code. Then the people who just sketch and go to code, that's a little bit rare, but it is out there. We have our wireframes, and then we have interactive prototypes, and we're going to have a prototyping section in this course. Think of the prototypes as, everything's kind of built. How do you link and navigate through it, the visual and the code? Adobe just started a program last semester called XD, and it's a rapid prototyping. And this one is really useful for that process. So what you need to do is sort of figure out which of these processes brings out your strengths, and then also which one are you most comfortable with, because in design it's up to us to figure out what is our most efficient workflow, and there's only one way to find your most efficient workflow is to experiment with a variety of them, and it's up to you. You need to decide which one is the one you prefer. One of my friends is more code centric, so as long as he has that, quick little sketch or a, rough mock-up, he can just hop right into coding. Someone, more like me, I like to go into the list idea generating sketches, then I'm going to go into the wireframes, visuals, and then code. I'm more in that first category. Sometimes you're going to have to try it out. Try out which one works for you, see which system works best for your process. So some people, are really good at the sketching section and they just skip the wireframing. That's fine also. Some people do the post-it note methods. You're going to notice a lot of designers, you'll see all these pictures. It's like designers with post-it notes around them. This is one way actually for a team to build things, and you can write like whatever your navs are, your sub-navs, and then you can figure out your sites, etc. from there. Some also like to have as many steps as possible. That way you can sort of see how the design starts to take form, and you can see a problem before it arises. So that, you might be a maximalist when you work, and that's fine also. So you can do wireframing. We can use Illustrator or Photoshop for this. You can also just use paper and pencil. There's high def wireframes, so you can get a little bit fancier in Illustrator. The visuals you can do in the Photoshop, and then the coding comes through your HTML, CSS. I'll do one of my friends as an example. Again, she does the wireframing through the visual in Photoshop, packages up the files, and then sends it to the back-end devs, and then they do the code side. So you might be even, if you get into this side of design, you might be just a portion of this process, between front end and back end, depending on where it is you are on the team and their workflow. We can also look at this as like the sketch. So the sketch can either be paper, pencil, and then you can take it into Photoshop or Illustrator, and then you can go ahead and take it into the land of the code, etc., etc., etc. So you can see how each of these, you can try different variations of this to see which process works best for you. So some of the tools. So as well as the paper, pencil, Illustrator, Photoshop, there are other ones out there. These I'm not going to belabor too much. You're just going to sort of have to go through this lecture after I'm done and pop on each of them and see what they do. So we had OmniGroups, we have Go, Mockingbird, Loomsy, Mockflow. We also have some resources through Creative Block and Code Condo, and there's also a site called Balsamiq that you can use. I will put the link up on our site. Balsamiq, I think, has a free trial, and that's why I don't have it on this list. I will have a list of wireframing resources for you on top of these. Balsamiq has a free trial, and theirs is very nice, but again, it's a limited free trial. So if you're going to use that one, just know, I think you get like a week, maybe 2 out of that one. So you can use these online browser-based wireframing tools, or you can use Photoshop, Illustrator, or you can just grab your paper and pencil and just photograph it for the upload when you're on this portion of the project.